Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Good Stuff. I'm Kevin Bille, and as always, we appreciate you joining us. Well, hey, we've had a basketball, we've had some football, but now we got to get a baseball guy on here. Postseason's coming up, and maybe he'll give us prediction on who's going to win the World Series. But nonetheless, today we have the national team head baseball coach at IMG Academy, Dave Turgeon. Dave, it's great to have you, man.
Kevin, great to see you as always. Looking forward to this all week.
It's, we met here, I don't know how many months ago it's been, but that was a great trip down to Sarasota. I'm sure you want to start off by bragging a little bit about the weather. I think it's chilly and or starting to get chilly and rainy up here, and you got all these facilities. So talk to us a little bit what's going on down at IMG.
We are not having weather issues at all, but we've been diving into our fall player development. It's almost like an instructional league, and with 202 players broken up into work groups. We dive down, and it's a lot of individual attention, a lot of individual coaching, and we sprinkle in tournaments and inter squads and such. We start actually first this weekend, so we've been ramping up slowly for about 3 weeks. We'll roll into some games. It gives us a little idea about where we're at in our training, and back to the drawing board on Monday, and back into the video, back into the, individual work, individual attention, most of which, at this level, and again, it's all relative. Coaching is coaching, but I found most of it is really about the guy, the band first, and making sure they're in a good spot, and right. As a coach, that is a big deal. And I think it's really exaggerated at this level because, a lot of my kids are away from home and they're 16, 17, and 18 years old. Before going to college, they're getting more of a college experience. And so, you are the male influence, really that's present in their life every day. And, we don't take that lightly, and, try and show them what right looks like every day and impact and influence them and make sure they're in a good spot personally, so we can help them get better.
Love it. I love it. Hey, yeah. You've been in baseball a long time, right? As a player and a coach. And what is it? I mean, there's got to be something that you just love about the game, that you just can't live without at this point. What is that for you?
So that kind of evolves, grew up in it, we were really an athletic type family. I'm the last of 7. So I was, 5 boys. I was a bat boy, very early age. I was in dugouts at 4 or 5 and, got a chance to have a lot of visual reps, fell in love with the game through my brothers and my dad and, basketball, football, whatever the season was. But baseball was something that really stuck with me. One of my older brothers, Mike, was the first to play pro ball. There were 3 of us that played, and the oldest one, and I call him my Roger Bannister, the guy that ran the first sub 4-minute mile. Mm-hmm. And it was concluded that this we couldn't run a sub 4-minute mile, and it just was humanly impossible. They did studies. And all of a sudden, this guy runs a sub 4, and then within 2 years, it's 3, 5, 7. And I always, I was like, why? What's the thing? It was about the mindset. They believed that they could. Mm-hmm. So my brother, Mike, was my Bannister. He made me believe that I could, go on and get a college degree and all of that stuff. He instilled so many things of belief in me, and he was my permission giver, really. And to this day, he's my go-to guy. But I think that, I grew to love the game. I loved the grind of it. I loved the chess of it. I loved a lot of different things of it. But as you evolve and go into managing, when I was managing at 35, I quit playing surgery at 35, went into managing in pro ball. And it was completely about me. And I didn't really know what I was doing at all. And it's evolved to a point where within 3 years, I realized, I'm not very good at this right now. So, first it was the players, then it was the coach's fault. And then all of a sudden I'm going, maybe it's the guy who's the skipper of the ship here. And that's where really when the learning started to happen. And I tried to just let go of what I knew and started to learn over again and unlearn and learn. So it's evolved to a point of where I really dug coaching and teaching and impacting that way. But now it's really become kind of a holistic journey where, with my experience with the Pirates, it was, we grow boys into men first, and then the player emerges, the player resides in the man. And I know that's the only thing I really know to be true, because everything else kind of evolves, your core convictions, what you believe on, the fundamentals change, just the game, certain things evolve. That's the one thing I know. And it really is when you drill down on the man, that's where you can really help players and ultimately help them perform and help them go on and be better, better people, hopefully off the field, and better players and performers on the field.
I want to jump into your playing days here, but I want to stop right there on something that made me, I guess, want to ask you this question. I think, people just assume maybe if you played the game, you're going to be a good coach, right? I mean, and you alluded to a couple of things that really resonate with me, Dave. Like, what is it about the ones that play that do make them good coaches? Because there's a lot of them that fail too. It's just not something that I've always said, like, I mean, we're talking, if I'm in that chair, it's just a coach chair, it's one thing, but man, when I move 18 inches over to that next one, it's something different, and it's a lot different than the play. And so I don't know if that's something that rings true with you at all or not, or what you'd have to say about that.
So I think that's an awesome discussion. And I've had that conversation before with other coaches. I just see, and I was a 22nd rounder, and, I had to really work hard to be the 20th and 25th guy on the roster every year, and, do things, the right way, and actually, really learn, because the game, I wasn't out talenting the game. I was trying to figure out and just how to play the game. And I had to know what I was doing in order to fulfill, my spot in any team and experience. And then that started on, as a position player, and I transitioned to the mound, and it was no different, because now I was in a position where, man, I don't know anything about pitching. So I had to just turn myself over to my Japanese pitching coach and really learn from the ground up. And so that, in one sense, I didn't have any really bad habits yet on the mound, and didn't have to unlearn stuff. It was just learning. But I've never out talented the opposition, and I've always had to work to figure things out. And, the bulk of coaches that I know now, this certainly doesn't mean you can't be a great major league or high level elite player and not be a great coach. I just know from my experiences that I was forced to learn things, that maybe someone who had tools beyond my capability, didn't have to, because they just kind of went out and were better than everyone else on the field at that time. And being undersized and the last of 7 kids, I was always trying to perform and compete against my older brothers and my sisters included. Sure. And I think that kind of really helped me, because then you really had to figure out, well, how can I compete here? How can I, even win here? So you kind of dive into different aspects. And I think, with that, the same thing kind of evolved with coaching. I played 13 years, but, only as high as a AAA level. And I don't have this major league resume, Hall of Fame thing, but I have a significant amount of time to learn, and compete and figure things out. So that was a great, thing in itself, but always having to figure things out has helped me as a teacher, understand things maybe at a little deeper level. And even still, when you move and transition from playing to coaching, I found that each player is a different manual. And so your playing career really doesn't mean anything, because that's what you did. And so you really have to figure out who this individual is and how can I help this guy? And quite honestly, they don't really care. they don't care about your career. They're just like, can I trust this cat? Can he help me? That's really all they care about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's go back to your playing days a little bit. I mean, you played 13 years in 5 different countries, which I'm going to get to, or we'll circle back to, but I'd be curious to know, I've got 2 questions. The first one is, what did baseball teach you about being successful, and how do you handle success?
So, that's a huge topic, but for me, it's almost the same as it's being connected. Number one, being connected, being a great teammate. We all need everybody. We are hardwired for community, and baseball, if anything, coaching and playing has taught me that we all need all of us all the time. And if you're going to think you're going to be an island and be successful, good luck to you, man. It's just not that's not why we're here. We're here to help each other, pour into each other. But other aspects of the thing is taught me is just the discipline, being able to prepare, execute, and review and nail your process daily, having a plan to do it, measure it. There is a confidence thing that comes with working hard and doing hard all the time. And you really earn confidence. And that's a great performance enhancer for anything, any part of life, confidence that you can solve problems. You do hard. It's not a excuse mentality. It's a just work through and solve mentality. I think that sports and playing has really helped me do that.
Yeah.
Bad hops. Clint Hurdle used to say, hey, man, he'd tell me 99, you're going to have at least three bad hops every day. How are you going to handle them? Some days there were 7 or 8 bad hops. I'm like, Skipper, there's a few more than 3 there, but that's fine. I can handle those bad hops. But he was pouring into me too, because my fire can burn hot at times too. And, the learning of patience is another part of this thing that's helped me. Learning patience is a big lesson. Coach Olson, Rod Olson, the coach of coaches, had a line, and I'll never forget it. He said, when you are patient, it's about your player. When you're not, it's about you. And
that's good.
I really look at that, and all the time I catch myself, because look, we all have a lot of experience, and I think to say that if we don't have an ego, I think it's not being, completely honest. And
right.
Sometimes when that ego gets in the way, and that's the thing that emerges. It's not always pretty, but I'll never forget that, and it's real, and I believe that wholeheartedly. But those things for me, those are some of the lessons, that to me it's a good thing that crosses over into any work, any industry. It's about the work. It's about connection. It's about, you owning your stuff, your accountability. The last piece of this is, baseball, more than anything, for you to learn in this thing, especially as a coach and a leader, I've found the vulnerability piece is huge.
Yeah.
And because, you can, if you're not willing to put your stuff out there and look foolish and test and get feedback and have a coachable heart, I don't know that we can improve without that vulnerability piece. And I think the thing about coaching and leading, especially at this level, if you create that safe environment where, guys are free to jack it up.
Right.
I'm understanding that, my relationship with failure is about learning, and it's not about the failure. It's about, okay, what have we gathered from that? And let's get on to the next play, next pitch, next day. But the vulnerability piece, I never really got that. And the more I'm in this thing, the more I realized how critical it is for these guys to feel safe, and not, just it's a safe spot. And I can work hard. I can play like I'm on fire. I can screw it up. Doesn't matter. We're good. I can help them. They can help themselves. They can help each other. But when you get that environment, it's tough to beat, man. That's an environment of learning and improvement. And I really try to create that intentionally.
Yeah, I think that's really good. Cause I go back to when I was a player, and I know when I had that freedom and that trust, from that coach, I was able to be more myself. And you touched on this a little bit. I do have to interject a funny story though, as well. You talked about Clint's 3 hops. I remember listening to Eric Spoelstra. I think this was the year after he got LeBron and Bosch and Wade. And I was down at a clinic in Florida, and he said, Pat Riley told him that he needs to expect, in his words, excuse me, a shitstorm every day. And he said, man, there was one every huddle. And he asked there was a private clinic. There's probably only 40, 50 people there. And I will never forget this as long as I live. He said, how do you deal with this? What do you do when shit hits the fan? And a guy answered, and he says, well, that's easy. I clean it up. He said, yeah, that's what I was doing. He said, but now I've learned to turn the fan off first. And I thought, man, that's really good. You alluded to this a little bit, and this was kind of my second question is, do you have any insights or stories maybe on the lessons you've learned with the topic of failure? Like you just mentioned, we talked about success. You touched on failure there towards the end.
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. I think probably you and I could probably talk all day on which one is more of a driver, but any insights or lessons that you can, quickly provide on failure then?
So, not just here, but really throughout my coaching journey, it's been number one, I had to change my relationship with failure because there was some perfectionism in there. And,
oh, okay.
I had to figure out, how to worry about improving rather, chasing perfection, man. You're looking for unicorns. And so I'll tell you what, this is the truth, man. About 11 years ago, I came over to the Pirates and they came up with Kaizen. And I was like, what's that all about? It's getting 1/10 of 1% better every day. Just, and if you can nail that through 365, you're looking at 36% improvement. I'm like, man, that just is so, it freed me up, man. I was like, so it just became about improvement, and with my players, I tried to get them about improvement and competing. Just worry about that. Just improve daily and compete, compete, and you'll be in a good spot. So that's, to me, is, having guys understand that this whole, game is a learning experience. Every pitch, every out, every success, every failure, but it's what just happened. Try to make sense of it. Move on to the next play. What makes sense? Gather the intel. Move on to the next play. Much like life. I mean, when you're making bad decisions and good decisions, what just happened? Fix it and let's move on. Learn from it.
Right.
But this thing down here, the emotions are so raw. They're obsessed with the D1 offers that are going on. They're obsessed with his buddies going to Miami. Social media's he's a preseason All-American. There's a lot of noise out there.
Yes.
That breeds this perfection when they get on the field. Like I'm preseason All-American. Like I'm afraid to screw up now. So you're kind of battling a lot of noise. And so we do classroom sessions once a week on not X's and O's, but on those things, on, the secret sauce, hard work, doing hard. The secret sauce of learning is, failing and learning from it and moving on and growing. But I work on that daily. And I can tell you that my Kaizen store, I love t-shirts that have I have these t-shirts and I put messages on them. We'll usually reward, players on the soft skills of their work, end of the week, learner of the week, whoever, Kaizen player of the week. So Kaizen, I was so obsessed with, I was like, man, I tell my wife, I'm like, I love this.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a t-shirt made. Okay. She's like, go ahead. Yeah. So I go to the clubby, Pat Haggerty. I said, Hags, look up Kaizen. I want it in Japanese on the front and in English on the back, like the word Kaizen. he goes, yeah, look, see this? I go, yeah, I love that Japanese writing. That's cool, and then the back, and someone's going to go, what is that? And I'm going to tell them what it is. And then, we can rally around the shirt. I love it. Gets the shirts ordered up. I'm passing them out because like people are going, hey man, can I get one of those? I say, yep, boom. There's one for you right there. 2X, what do we need? I'm like, boom, guys in the clubhouse. Hey, I like that. That's cool. So then fast forward about 2 months and we are org meetings, and our head strength guy in Pittsburgh was a Japanese guy that spoke English, Japanese, and Spanish. And he goes, Turge, why do you have a shirt that says Japanese on it? I wrote the word Japanese in Japanese on the front and on the back. That's how committed to it I was. I said, no one else needs to know that. So I mean, but and then within the room, obviously that one didn't go away, but I still have the t-shirt.
That's great, man. I have something literally on my computer pulled up right now about Kaizen. I love that stuff, Coach. I love it. It's great.
Yeah. I mean, but that's a never ending battle with guys. As you've handled it, you've talked about it, you've been through it. It is constantly reframing it.
Yeah.
And letting him and showing these stories of failure and how you come out of the other end of this thing stronger, better, smarter, ready for the next thing. Mm-hmm. And it never ends. It's not a one-day session. It's all the time. Catching them doing good, catching them learning, catching them doing good stuff. That's all a part of it, man.
Well, and I think it's really interesting to me to hear how different coaches or parents treat failure. Like I have, and this wasn't even my idea. At one point I'd heard about this and I loved it. It's like our 3 boys will come home and I'll ask them specifically, hey, what'd you fail at today? And almost applaud it, not, you understand, like I'm not trying to, right. It depends on what it is, obviously, but I want them to understand at a young age how important it is, in the type of individual it ends up making them and where they're at in terms of the scale resilience. So I think it's a really good thing. Going back to once again, you played all over the world here. Just kind of tell us what that was like a little bit, and maybe even tell us, did you have a favorite place in all of your journeys and why?
So when I feel very fortunate to have been in some different spots. One thing that I learned to do, and I don't know why, I just was wired that way, was to wherever I am, they don't change to me and my culture. I have to make adjustments to fit into their culture. They've invited me into this thing to make a living. And, this has to be a collaboration. So my favorite spot, probably Taiwan. I'd spent 4.5 years over there. I had incredible culture shock. It was really hard for 2 of the years, just getting around and figuring out just how to be able to survive off the field. On the field was easier, but it also was my favorite spot because I had a Japanese pitching coach. And I had a couple of Japanese teammates that were some of the best teammates I ever had. But my Japanese pitching coach impacted my life in such a way that he redefined work ethic and discipline, and how to improve and perform. He was so disciplined. He was such a good teacher, and his work ethic. He was always so prepared, and he had us prepared. He showed us how to prepare, and that guy impacted me as much as anyone in my life. And he took the current version of me at that time, and he helped me become some better version of myself. And that's when I got back here and then I transitioned to Mexico and then the International League in the US and all that stuff, I felt I was prepared. I was comfortable at the level. It was, as a result of, what that guy gave me. It was pretty cool. And, the stuff that you hear about their culture in terms of, respect and discipline and work ethic is completely true. And I have an admiration for them, and in particular, Holy San, he was my guy, and all of his stuff stayed with me. And then I transitioned. I did a little pitching coach part of when I was in college and stuff. All his teachings, his accountability is, he was so impactful in my life. Too, is that I had to learn how to play their version, of baseball. I think adaptability and adjustability are two qualities too, playing,
love it,
overseas. And where isn't that valuable in life, you go and you become part of wherever you're at and add your piece. And it taught me those things. I tell you, it's really cool to earn the respect of your teammates. Number one, I think that's all I ever cared about. But to do it in a foreign country is a bigger challenge because, there's some barriers there. And I'm not just talking about language. There's a lot of stuff there. And I think it's a great feeling when you have those real connections and become brothers with those guys. And, years later, they're still your brothers.
Yep.
It's pretty cool. So yeah, that was a very impactful experience for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And it just takes me back to the 1 year I played in Germany, and I can say, like, ordering through the drive-through McDonald's, going out with a group of 10 people that spoke German and I didn't, and going over to a teammate's house that spoke no English. I think for me, at least, Dave, it was, I realized how selfish maybe I was and how we can be over here at times. Right. And so that really left an impact on me. I would be, and maybe this is for playing, but even transitioning now into the coaching part that I want to discuss. How do you personally define success? And I know that, I guess more so at this point in your life, because I don't know about for you, but if you would have asked me at 20 years ago, that would have been different. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, maybe even last year, that would have been different. But right now for you at this point in your life, what is that definition?
So it's not a win. I can tell you that. I had this conversation with my hitting coach, Corey DeHaan, recently. And we're talking about, nail the day. That's it. Nail the day. Yeah. And so what is that? What is nail the day? And I think that if I feel like I've done my job in preparing to prepare for our guys, to help them, that's the first piece of this thing. The second piece of this thing is, did I give each one of those guys individually my A game, to the best of my ability to help them become better men, better players? And then at the end of the day, I look back and I say, we solved some problems. We connected with two players today at a really deep level. We got to some stuff. But I know that might not happen, but the connectivity of going through my day, not just we got to nail a schedule. I'm talking about nailing the day of being super connective, finding out where each guy's at, best of our ability, given the time slots that we have, and then nailing and teaching them the best that we can in our environment. And then at the end of the day, reviewing, how do we fall short? Where do we fall short today? What do we like today? What did we learn today? And that, to me, and quite honestly, at the end of the day, I'm pretty gassed. And that's usually it's a good feeling, knowing that I did everything I could today, obviously to help these guys. And I think, when I look back at the end and review the day with my coaches, that's really how we define success. It was a good day. I think I think we all as a collective got better today. But not only that, I think, I had a really big conversation with Cooper Cross today, or, I connected with Elijah Green today in a real way. And I feel like that's going to really be a gateway to his improvement, or, those kind of things. We nailed some different training aspects that's really going to help push these guys in the gap of learning and really stretch them. So those are the ways that we measure success. And at the end, the real success stories is when, at the end of the year, you get a thank you, you get, a letter, a parent, or whatever, those things, those are success. And it's not the W's, and
Right.
Those are fun. They go away very quickly, and they remember more about the tunes and the Chick-fil-A on the way home and the story told than the big win over, Jesuits high school. So,
right. Yeah, that's good. That's real good. It's funny. I got asked that question on a podcast here about 5-6 months ago, and I answered it pretty much the same way. Ironically, I just win the day, right? And I think to your point, I'm not saying that this is what you have to do, but I think when you have some things in place as an individual, there's a beginning and there's an end, right? And so the beginning for me, it's quiet time. It's right away when I wake up, I'm writing one thing down I'm grateful for. I think that I didn't invent that exercise, but I think that's really good. And I think you alluded to this already in the reviewing. I think it's really healthy at the end of your day, whenever that is, to ask yourself certain questions that you can reflect upon, So for anybody that's listening, I'd be anxious to see if that's something that resonates with you, or if that's something you do. What's something, Dave, and go ahead.
Go back. That last piece of the day is really when you're most vulnerable with staff too, though,
Yep.
And again, it goes back to that, where, Corey, what'd you think here? Well, you hit him a little hard here, maybe a different approach there. Or, I really didn't like this exercise. I didn't feel like we moved in a good direction on that. Whatever, like you're receiving coaching from each other. And in order to do that and receive things, you have to be in a vulnerable spot. And, that relationship has got to be strong, all that stuff. But the most important part of the day, and for me as a coach, is that time.
Yeah, that's good. And I think those questions, once again, the questions you ask at the end of the day, Dave, might be different than the question I'm asking, right? I mean, I think it depends on you as an individual. And I'll inject in here again, I've probably said this 2 or 3 times now in 60 plus episodes. I still think one of the healthiest exercises, I get that index card out and I put 3 questions on there for my boys. Trust me, don't do this with your wife or you'll get the real answers. But it's, what do I need to start doing? What do I need to stop doing? And what do I need to keep doing? And I think if you're willing to ask those questions, and to your point, I love what you're talking about here, Dave, with vulnerability. I think it's a key trait as a leader, and I think there needs to be more of it. And I think if you're willing to do an exercise like that, monthly or, every quarterly with your staff even, or your players underneath you, I think you'll get a lot of quality answers that can make you better for them. And so, that's another healthy exercise that I would recommend to people out there. Yeah. What's something I was just sitting there last night, speaking of reviewing, knowing that we were doing this, and I'm thinking, man, what's something that this is for you, but I was thinking about when I was coaching, what's something about coaching that you had no idea about until it happened? Like, I just think, like, is there something that sticks out to you that you didn't, like, when you signed up to do this? Like, I didn't know I needed to do this in order to be a coach, because I feel like I could write a book on that, whether it was, and I'm not above these things, whether it was doing the laundry or cleaning up something, or, mopping the floor or whatever. I mean, is there anything that comes to you when I ask you that question?
So, I mean, it's a long list.
I wish I would have studied psychology to begin with.
Yeah. That's a really long list for me and my transition, because I went from playing to managing, right? Probably wasn't really great at managing myself at 35 after playing.
That's great.
And I didn't know what I didn't know first. That's the first thing. But like, at that point, I thought that the position of manager was smartest guy in the room, always look in control, wear them out when they don't play well, have to have a clean practice. Like all of these things I thought are the complete opposite from the real deal and truth. And, and I can keep going. And so, the relationship piece, and no clue. Cause as a player, you're obsessed with, your singular job, and, you got teammates and you're going through but when you go and you're overwhelmed with the gig, then you get to be an island. So I got to act like I know what I'm doing. And then you stop learning. So there's a lot of stuff there. Right. So towards the end of my first year of managing, so Tony Arnold's my first pitching coach with Cleveland Indians, and he takes me to dinner. And first he asked me, "Hey, you want to go have dinner and a beer somewhere?" And I was like, that's the first time
a coach
he's asked me to go have dinner and a beer. So that's, good. There's good things. And I go, so we'll meet at Longhorn and go have a beer and a steak. And so he goes, yeah, I got something I want to give you. And I said, awesome. The guy was thinking, geez, this guy's want to give me something. I mean, this is awesome, man. So we go, and, it took him a while to get around to it. He finished his food first because maybe he figured if I don't eat I better get this done after I eat. Maybe it's not going to go well. So he goes, hey, I got something I want to give you. He goes into his bag. He reaches out. It's a book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Turgeon. Right?
Yeah. Yep.
He goes, I want you to have this. And, I want you to read it. It's a really good book. And I think it can really help you, because if you don't, I think you're going to lose the clubhouse. And I was squared up. He squared me up. And at that time, blunt force trauma to the forehead was about the only way I could possibly receive anything, because I really didn't have a real good understanding of what my job even was. So that was the beginning of obviously we're very close to this day. He loved me enough to be vulnerable, take a chance, and try to help me there. And he did. And the beginning of a lot of good stuff for me. And obviously the relationship piece comes before competency and coaching, in my opinion. Now, you can't be super relational and connective and not be a competent, in your area or field of expertise, but it really doesn't matter. And nothing's going to land unless you're a very connective and relational person, and then to be intentional about that. But that was my first year of managing, and Tony Arnold, to this day, very close. We talk 6-7 times a year. He's still with the Indians. Great man.
Well, I'd be interested to know two-part question. What are the things the biggest things that have crystallized? You probably touched on this a little bit, but that have crystallized, to you as a coach or leader. And then maybe secondly, what are some of those traps that we fall into as coaches and leaders?
So I can tell you that coaches are famous for loving the swing, loving the delivery, loving the dope. And I've seen this play out over and over again. And as every year it crystallizes more and more, because I get a little older, and it seems the others get younger and younger. And so I see things more clearly. And here's the issue that I'm talking about. And it's not an issue. It's a process where coaches default to someone's swing or delivery or whatever they're doing physically on a field. They always default to those things and fixing the thing. And I found that 99% of the time it's a head-heart problem. Let me give you an example. Man, he can't throw the ball over the plate. He's not getting the ball out on time. He's not finishing his delivery. He can't land a breaking ball. We got to work on this in the bullpen. Well, it turns out his dad's sick, just had open heart surgery, or, And that's where the connected piece comes in. Okay. Or every time dad's in town, he tries to do too much and his delivery breaks down because he's trying to impress his dad and light up a jugs gun. It's not the delivery, it's the head and the heart. And, the swing breaks down. Why? Well, there's scouts in the stands. And so he's really lost the focus of getting a good pitch to hit and putting a good swing on it, staying focused in the middle of the field because he's trying to do too much because there's scouts in the stands. Or, he gets in certain situations, he tries to do too much. But coaches always default to mechanics, X's and O's, dope, as opposed to, hey man, how's it going? Is everything all right?
Yep.
You've probably experienced this 1,000 times where all you have to do is say, how's it going, man? Are you doing okay? How's the family?
Yep.
And the floodgates open. And it's amazing once they are able to share and unpack things that all of a sudden, deliveries get cleaned up and their game comes back to them. And it seems like they're playing freely and on fire again. And I think that we, as coaches, default to that stuff way too much. Do I still do it? Absolutely. Do I do it less frequently? Way less frequently. And it used to be front door fixing, where now I think that the weapon of choice for me is always a question. What do you got there? Walk me through that.
Yeah, for sure. That's good.
And then the old thing of finding out where their head and heart is, as opposed to quick fix their things, just hand it to them. And you're not creating a guy that can self-evaluate and correct and make adjustments on his own. You just create someone that's dependent on a GPS. And if the GPS goes out and he doesn't know where he's going, so what's he going to do? You're not helping that player. And I think, again, with the process, is that coaches get that quick. Kyle Stark, one of my friends and mentors, will tell you, coaches get that quick dopamine hit when they can just fix a swing and they can fix a delivery, they can fix a guy. And the reality of it is we didn't help them. We made ourselves feel pretty good. We helped them in the short term.
Yeah.
We didn't really help them in his process.
That's really good. And you mentioned Kyle, who's our connection here. And as we wrap up, before we get to rapid fire, I can't get off here without talking about culture. And I would just love for you to speak on the example of the Pirates in that culture, because being connected to Kyle, getting to know Clint, and getting my devotionals from him all the time, and talking to Brian as you and I talk, staying connected to you, just that whole experience down there. It didn't take me but 2 minutes. Kyle and Clint have been on here to understand the culture, and I know how important that is. You know how important that is. Just speak to that a little bit, and please, just that example of the Pirates organization with those guys around and you included.
So Kyle and Clint, two of the most dynamic leaders that I've ever, been around. And, two different styles, but both with a contagious energy, tireless, work ethic, but they were relentlessly connective. First of all, and once they, and again, the messaging, two things, incredibly relentlessly connective in their spots in those two really important seats on the bus, right? So that's the first thing. Powerful messaging. All right, this is, this is how it's going to be. We're going to walk, talk. This is how we run our daily bit. We don't manage inboxes. We're managing people. Transparency all over the gate. Feedback. They put the messaging in place. They educated us on everything, soup to nuts. But here's the thing. Once you get the right people on the bus, and they did a great job of putting those people in the right seats on the bus. The last thing, when you do things the right way, and it's about people first, the last thing to come are the wins, man. And the heavy lifting is changing mindset. So really it went from, prior to them coming there, kind of a natural selection type player development system, winning the big leagues at all costs, to changing the world through baseball, changing boys into men, doing it holistically so that you can not just get to a spot and win, but you can sustain it. And the thing that they did is that their words and their actions always aligned. Where you're walking around going, that's not what he said. Those guys breathed it, and they breathed it and they lived it. Once you're in it and you're surrounded by the people on the bus that are the right people, man, it becomes like this wave you can't stop. The last thing to come are the wins, and it did. It took us 3 or 4 years, and then we went on like a 4-year run that was unbelievable. Very close to being in the World Series. I think it was 13 or 14, but
yeah, for sure.
But we had and that's the Pirates specifically was like the third rebuild that I've been a part of, but nothing at that level of because player development and the major leagues is a huge. There's a lot of moving parts as opposed to a college team. Yeah. Where you're the front office, player development, scouting, you're all of that stuff here. So there's not this massive business thing model. But how they did that, and again, was amazing. I'm grateful to have been a part of it. But the heavy lifting for me is the day-to-day grind of connectivity and follow-up, as opposed to just shooting out a text or putting a strong speech in place. Yeah, well, that's all good, but do they grind, and are they actually doing this? They embodied it. They were walking sermons for us. And they weren't the only ones, because, they also surrounded themselves with the same, mindsets, the growth mindset type folks. But, honestly, the pep talks and all that stuff are way overrated. Mm-hmm. Really, the walking sermon for me is the one that sticks, because men and players and, men's staff, they watch, and what's this guy all about? What comes out of his mouth? What electrocutes him? What is he like? What does he jump ship when it's not going well? What is he? Is he consistent? Does he show up when he feels like it? Or does he show up every day? And they possess that blue collar mentality, man, of showing up every day. And, it's hard not to fall in line with that. Right. When your leadership is real, man. And awesome experience for me. It redefined a lot of stuff for me. And it continues that we continue to unpack our experience there. I mean, a lot of stuff happens. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. And a lot of lessons, a lot of hard lessons, a lot of successes, but a lot of heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the other thing, getting to know Kyle more and then spending time with all you guys down there, it's really clear to me that, the two things that I think every leader should strive for is, simplicity with the message, and then clarity. There's definitely a difference. And I thought that, those guys and a lot of the people that we were surrounded with in those 3 days down there, Dave, I thought that really rang true to me, just with their approach. So that was definitely something that stuck out. Just before we get into 3-pointers, you mentioned a book earlier. We like to talk about books on here, Dave. Are you a reader? Do you have a book that you'd like to plug or two, or that's resonated with you?
Well, if for any young coach, Inside Out Coaching by Joe Ehrman is, it's a slower read. It's a hard hitting read. Got that one early 2010, I think, or 2011. And then Joe actually came and spoke to us in Pittsburgh, and it's a very, very good read, heavy read. I'm doing a reread right now of Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. There's a lot of good low-hanging fruit in that book that you could put stuff in play quickly with. But I always like Coyle because he does a lot of interesting studies and does all the heavy lifting for you. And you just kind of, can cherry pick some things that might apply for you. But I'm rereading that one right now. It's a pretty good one. I don't reread books very often. That's one I am rereading, though. It's on my reread list, and I'm doing that right now.
Good. Well, that is a good one. Well, hey, let's go rapid fire to finish. Now these are 3-pointers. Maybe I should just call them 3 swings, but then again, you're at Davidson. So if anybody goes to Davidson, should shoot the 3 pretty well, right?
Yeah, man. I gave Steph Curry all he knows.
That's right. All right. Number one, if people could learn one thing from this talk, Coach, and just hold on to it, what would you want that one thing to be?
I would want every coach to understand that being relational and connective is the number one focus of the day, but not that but being intentional about that. It's something you have to feed daily. One of the things that I do daily is I meet with a player. I go down my list, I meet with them, connect with them. And if I haven't met them, I just get to know them. Where are you from? What do you like? Who are some of the influences in your life? Where are you from? What do you like to do when you're not playing baseball? Just a personal connection meeting. And I continue to do that so that every time, I have a meeting with a player, they're not getting called in because they're in trouble. Mm-hmm. And they get to know me a little bit, get to know me off the field a little bit. So that piece is big. And John Hammermeister, again, another mentor for me, working with the Pirates as a leadership type consultant guy, did so many deep studies on team building and cohesion. And it really made me understand that it is not one of the things, it is the thing in bringing a room together.
It's good. Number two, if Dave could have come over here today and been in my shoes, what question would have you asked him that I did not ask today?
Ooh, that's a good question. So we didn't dive down into training and my thoughts on training today, and just how that evolves. Coaches, and just how if you coaches are like they get this training method du jour sometime, or of the week, and they start thinking, kind of spread things around. Anyway, my interesting topic for me, training. What are your views on training skill acquisition? Because it also goes back to the connectivity piece. So if you want to create skill retention and skill acquisition and transfer, you have to know your people, know what they need, know how to challenge them, know how much to challenge them. Again, that kind of ties in the competency piece a little bit with the coaching aspect of it. But again, it all circles back to the first piece that we talked about. I think it's an interesting topic.
Yeah, for sure. That's good. Good stuff. Number three, good stuff is the name of this. Just give us some good stuff in closing. Anything that maybe you feel is appropriate at this time.
I have, I've never coached at this level where I'm at currently at IMG Academy, which is a high school. And I've never coached here at this level. All the lessons that I've learned about coaching, when you're at this level, it's like everything is on steroids. Their emotions are so raw. Their reactions, their emotions, the noise that's around them. It's really raw, and their ability to, handle those things. But it's like, I've dealt with all of those things at higher level with higher level players. But it just like everything here is really magnified. The other thing that, and so I have to be better at, relationship building. I have to be, because they need it more. I have to be more competent. I have to know things at a deeper level of the game, because it needs to be in smaller, sizes. So this exercise for me has been awesome. I said, I go back to my relationship and competency piece, and all that falls under that. I think, it's important, but it is in that order. And I am grateful for this opportunity. The last piece I'll leave you with is that this change of scenery, this change of challenges for me has been a little mini revival. We all need them. We all need to get out of our current comfort and get into other challenges. And I believe that if we continue to challenge ourselves, number one, but to continue to evolve and have different challenges thrown on us is such a good thing. This place has brought me back to the purity of teaching and coaching. And it's brought me back to the purity and fundamentals of a game. I really, really love. But yeah, we all need them. We all need minute revival. It might be a book. It might be a conversation like we're having today. And it might be just different challenges, that your job gives you. But I'm very grateful for the opportunity here for those reasons.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you. Hey, finally, where can our listeners connect with you via social media or anything about the program, or what's best for them?
IMG Academy is on Twitter. IMG Baseball Academy is on Twitter. I am on Twitter, David Turgeon 45, I think it is. My hand. Just type in David Turgeon. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'll post some articles that I've written on both. I'll have one coming out in another probably 2 months, as soon as I finish up the fall here. I think I'm going to write about my experience here and some of the things that I've learned and continue to learn and evolve. So this has been cool. I appreciate the time very much, Kevin. This has been really cool for me. I got some really good notes from you as well.
Yeah, this is great, man. This is, I love this time and your stories and the insight you provided. Man, it's such good stuff. I know that the people that are listening are going to pick up a ton from you, Dave. And I know those players are really lucky to have you down there.
Appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have them as well.
Yeah. Well, we'll be following you here and rooting you on, and just best of luck. I look forward to staying in touch, but thanks for your time today, Dave.
Awesome, Kevin. Thank you, buddy.
Well, hey, everybody. Once again, I think a ton of nuggets in this episode today with Dave. He's provided a lot of value for us. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll touch base with Dave. As you know, you connect with him on Twitter as well, but I am at goodstuffkevin@gmail.com. And I look forward to, once again, hearing what you think of this episode. Thanks for listening. And until next time, good stuff.